Rav Gershon Edelstein writes, Chayvas tikon hamaisim, the obligation that we have to fix up our ways, lahavi lebinyan beis hamikdash, to bring us to the building of the beis hamikdash. Im adam hayechayshev, if a person will think, umetayr la'atzma, they will imagine for themselves, Eize tanugim ruchniim shayulanu es beis hamikdash hayekayim, how much spiritual pleasure we would have, like we pointed out the other day, if the Beis HaMikdash would be here. V'achshav chaserim lanu hatanugim elu, and right now, because we don't have a Beis HaMikdash, so we're lacking all of that. V'adai shayim mitzvah. If a person would think to themselves, what we're missing, what we would have, but we don't have it right now, so we would be mitzvah, we would actually be in pain, grieving over such a thing. But unfortunately, we don't really feel what we are lacking. We don't really have the vocabulary, we don't have the experience, we don't have the understanding to be able to imagine for ourselves what real spiritual pleasures are really like. A good steak, you understand what that tastes like. A good bottle of schnapps that costs more than you normally would spend, but when you have a sip of that, you know what that pleasure is all about. The best ice cream in the world, 3 scoops with chocolate syrup and marshmallows and nuts and sprinkles and everything. You know how geschmack that is. The problem is that our spiritual taste buds and experiences are very limited, so we don't really appreciate what the real tanug, the real pleasure of ruchnius, of spirituality is all about. And therefore, as a result of that, does anybody really miss the Beis HaMikdash? If you'll have a Beis HaMikdash, you'll be able to have such great spiritual pleasures. And so, I don't really know what spiritual pleasures are anyway, so therefore I don't feel that I'm missing anything. But we believe and we know. The lacking of a Beis HaMikdash in this world is something that is very great. If it would be here, we would have reached levels of spiritual pleasure that's far beyond what we could imagine. And how great is the loss that we are not zeicha, we don't merit to have a Beis HaMikdash, and we don't merit to have these great spiritual pleasures. But who is the cause of all of this? Anyone who has not yet fixed the sinful ways that exist in Klal Yisrael since the time of the Chorban, of the destruction 2,000 years ago, we then are the ones that are responsible that we don't have a Beis HaMikdash, but also that we've numbed our spiritual, sensory aspects of ourselves to be able to appreciate that. If in fact the actions of the Jewish people would all be correct, in the right way, the Beis HaMikdash would have been built already. So for 2,000 years, Klal Yisrael had an opportunity to correct themselves and correct our ways, and then build the Beis HaMikdash. Hashem would have brought it down from Min HaShamayim. He would have brought it into this world. So if we still live in a post-Chorban world where there's a destruction, and all that's left is one wall, the Kaisa, where people go to daven, and the rest of the Beis HaMikdash is lying in ruins, literally, so then that must mean that we did not yet correct what was the Siba, what was the cause that brought it down in the first place. As we pointed out in the Rambam, it's our actions that have caused the destruction. We weren't there 2,000 years ago, but the Rambam, and he pointed out as well, is because not only the actions, the sins that a person does, bepoil with their hands, even our speech, lashon hara, our machshavas, our thoughts, when we think the wrong things, like the Nefesh HaChaim writes that a person who thinks thoughts that are really of znus, of illicit ideas inside of their head, so the Nefesh HaChaim says it's like bringing a zayna, like bringing a prostitute into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, into the Holy of Holies. So it's not only the words that I say, it's not only the actions that I do, it's even the machshavos, even the thoughts that a person has inside of their head. It also continues the Chorban. If our actions, if our speech, if our thoughts would be better than they are right now, so then, then then we didn't have Mizoicha to build the Beis HaMikdash. We would be able to appreciate the pleasures of a whole different world, a whole different pleasure that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to give us. The fact that we have not yet been merited to have a Beis HaMikdash until this time, it's only because we don't do what we're supposed to do. The fact that the Beis HaMikdash is lying in ruins is to remind us we must still be sinning, and we're continuing in the negative ways that happened already thousands of years ago. We have to awaken ourselves to do tshuva, and fix up those things that require correction. So he keeps driving home this point over and over and over again so far. Now he's going to get to the tikkun itself, and that is that there is a chorban. It was destroyed 2,000 years ago. There was a reason, because of sinas chinam, because of the other things that Klal Yisrael was involved in. And really, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he wants a house. He wants a place to hang his hat and his jacket at the end of the day. He doesn't like having a Chorban Abayis. He would rather have a Beis HaMikdash. It's good for us. It's good for our children. It's good for Klal Yisrael. It's good for the Shechina. So why isn't there a house then? HaKadosh Baruch Hu has no limitations. He has all of the Israeli contractors at his disposal. They can come and they can build anything just like that, and it's not a problem. So then what is the reason why there's not a Beis HaMikdash? Not because of Hashem. It's because of us. If we would just change our ways and better ourselves and be misaken ourselves, then he'll build it. So he concludes and he writes over here, the nisbaina lamaisa b'manu, we have to examine what exactly are the sins that Klal Yisrael continues to be involved in. What do we have to fix up? In order to build, you have to know what you have to fix up. In order to do tshuva, you have to know what you have to do tshuva on. There are three things, main things, that the world stands on. It says in Pirkei Avos, Torah, that's our learning, Avodah, our service of Hashem, we'll call that tefillah, our prayers, Ugemilas chasadim, and acts of chesed. These are the three main things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu expects of each of us, and therefore Rav Edelstein is going to go on to explain how these three things are very central areas of our Avodas Hashem, and how if a person would understand what Torah is, if they would understand what tefillah is, if they would understand what acts of chesed are, that would be the tikkun that will make in our actions, our words, and our machshavas and our thoughts, and that will begin to allow Klal Yisrael to start building the third Beis HaMikdash be'ez Hashem.